Thank you. Good afternoon to you. It's a great pleasure to be representing the United Kingdom government at this session of the World Islamic Economic Forum. As a member of the government at the Department for International Development and its whip in the House of Lords, today is a subject of real interest to me. In the last 3 years, the way in which the UK thinks about development is changing to include a much greater emphasis on jobs, business and growth. Of course, we are still supporting the vital health, education and sanitation programs that many developing countries depend upon. This kind of aid saves millions of lives each year, and we will keep doing it, but we recognize that it will only ever be a means to an end. Aid will not eliminate poverty by itself. It is now widely accepted that the primary driver of poverty is the reduction in its economic growth, and it's the private sector that is the engine of that growth. Over the last 10 to 20 years, we've seen countries across the developing world go from investment risks to emerging markets. Countries like Indonesia and India have gone from being major aid recipients to crucial UK trading partners. 25 years ago, Bangladesh had no garments industry. Now it's worth 20 billion in exports a year. As a result, increasingly, Britain's role in the developing world is not just a traditional aid donor. We now have much greater focus on supporting global economic development and jobs to lift the poorest out of poverty for good. In short, the Department for International Development is doing what it says on the tin, helping countries to develop. Our ultimate goal is to end the need for aid through growth and jobs. If this sounds ambitious, rest assured, we're not expecting to do all the work ourselves. Growth isn't driven by governments. It's the business that creates new jobs, opportunities, markets, and prosperity. Development, when done effectively, means helping business to get going, even from the smallest of beginnings. Microfinance is an important channel for giving businesses the economic launchpad they need to take off and then to prosper. And I know that this prestigious panel, which will follow, know that they will be discussing the future of microfinancing and how it can support social businesses. Today, I will set out what I see as some of the key challenges and opportunities around microfinance, and then more generally, how we can and must improve access to financial services in the Islamic world. Firstly, it's worth reflecting on the scale of the financial inclusion challenge. More than 2.5 billion people and millions of small businesses throughout the world lack access to formal financial services. High transaction costs and high perceived risks prevent banks from financing small and medium-sized enterprises, leaving them unable to develop and create the new jobs that they urgently need in many countries. As this audience will be aware, this is a big problem in the Middle East and the North African region in particular, where there are already high youth female unemployment, and it's estimated 100 million new jobs will be required by 2020. To meet this gap, the UK is supporting a number of programs that are helping micro and small businesses get access to finance in countries including Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, Jordan, Libya, Lebanon, Yemen, and the occupied Palestinian territories. We're also supporting technical advice to banks and other financial institutions to help meet financing the needs of smaller businesses. These programs are doing some very good work, but it's essential that more private investors, corporates and governments get involved. I'm very pleased to reiterate today the Prime Minister's announcement that the UK will be providing £4.5 million of support to new lending venture set up in the Middle East and North Africa by the Shell Foundation and specialist enterprise financier Growfin. The NAMU initiative will provide loans ranging from $100,000 to $2 million to businesses that are considered too high risk for banks to lend to, but are too large for microfinance. This is a much neglected category of business, often referred to as the missing middle. This initiative will also offer them pre- and post-investment business support on things like financial planning and management expertise. The aim is to create over 15,000 sustainable jobs and support more than 600 small to medium-sized businesses across Jordan, Egypt, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Oman. In order to achieve this, NAMO needs to raise £120 million in capital. And I urge investors who want to get a financial and social return on their money to support this exciting new venture. There is a growing recognition by governments that we must invest in small and medium enterprise because they hold the key to creating more jobs and more prosperous economies. It's equally vital that countries recognize that women are a key engine of growth, and no country can fully develop without properly investing in women. No country can properly develop without using 50% of their human capital. At the moment, the Middle East and North Africa has the lowest rates of female participation in the labour force of any region in the world, and this is holding back the region's growth prospects. IMF research estimates that Egypt's economy, for example, could grow by as much as 34% if it reached gender parity in the labour force. The UK has a number of programmes focused on unlocking the potential of girls and women through access to finance, technology, quality of education and training. We are currently on target to help more than 50 million people in the developing world access savings, credit and insurance by 2015, including 18 million women. This investment pays off. By 2015, our £50 million investment in the financial inclusion programme in Pakistan will have provided 701,000 women with microfinance loans to start their own small businesses. 701,000. Our research shows that these micro-entrepreneurs are making profits in excess of the interest costs associated with borrowing the money to grow their business. The UK wants to do more with the Islamic world to address the barriers to women's economic participation, including access to finance. Earlier this year, we announced an Arab Women's Enterprise Fund to strengthen women's economic contribution in the Middle East and North African countries. Alongside the private sector, we will co-fund a number of practical projects, including programs to improve women's access to business loans, banking services and insurance. And today, I am pleased to announce that the UK is raising our contribution to this important fund from £4 million to £10 million. I'm also delighted to say that the Islamic Development Bank will be joining us both as a partner in developing the fund and as a financial contributor. I want to make one final point before I finish, and that is in reference to technology and financial inclusion. At the moment, over 1 billion people own a mobile phone but do not have a bank account. Why should this be the case? Today, a phone in your hand can be a bank in your home. In a digital age, the most effective way to expand people's access to formal financial services is through mobile phones and other technology. We can see that in Pakistan, where DFID initially supported the seminal mobile banking services, Easy Paisa, since then, 5 more operators have entered the market, and there are now 64,000 mobile banking agents spread across Pakistan providing financial services. This compares to the 10,000 bricks and mortar bank branches. Nearly 500,000 transactions are conducted daily over these networks, and over 2.4 million people now have a mobile wallet in their accounts. I believe this is the future for banking, and DFID will continue to support the use of technology to help millions of people get better financial services. We all have an interest in delivering financial services to the developing world in a way that is affordable, transparent, convenient, and safe. The debate on the best way to do this will continue, and of course different approaches will work in different countries. It's important we can explore the potential of microfinance and that we evaluate where and how it is working, and I look forward to hearing the results of your discussions today. As I said at the beginning, the development landscape is changing, and the way we support developing countries is also changing. If we can't always agree on exactly how to do things, I think we can agree that if we are serious about defeating poverty, then we need to support businesses, whether it's a large corporation, a social enterprise, or one woman selling cloth to her neighbours. The UK is committed to this approach, and we will look to work in partnership with the Islamic world as, together, we put all countries on a path to economic growth. Thank you.
Lord Bates, thank you very much indeed. You've certainly set the scene for our panel, and interesting your point about women, because I think in Bangladesh, when microfinance began in that country, women were very much the primary beneficiaries of that. So yes, important to get all elements of the workforce involved. But we can now continue our discussion on this issue, and I'm pleased to introduce our moderator who will be chairing this discussion, Carlos Pierre, Portfolio Manager at Strategic Initiatives, KIVA.
Test. Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. Our panel is on exploring microfinance and social enterprise. My name is Carlos Pierre. I will be your moderator. I'd like to start by framing the discussion. I work for KIVA, which is a microfinance website that allows our field partners to post loans onto our website and get financed by people just like you throughout the world. We are just one part of the microfinance industry, specifically microcredit. It is a $60 billion assets under management industry. There's about 1,600 microfinance institutions, and they're fundraising about $4 billion every year. It has been a model that has proven that lending to the poor is possible. They will pay you back with incredible consistency, provided that you do the right business model, and that it has proven to be scalable. Nonetheless, there have been many limitations to the microfinance model, perhaps reaching agricultural areas, providing educational loans, providing loans to farmers. And one of the new areas that microfinance has started to focus on is in financing social enterprise. SME businesses, small and medium-sized enterprises that could benefit from a small loan to increase their production or produce savings. And today we have on our panel an extraordinary team of social entrepreneurs who, through their experiences, have seen the benefits and the shortcomings of microfinance. And today I'd like you to help me welcome Raheel from Maslaha, Jacqueline from the Hoja Law Group, and Goris from the Asgar Muda Foundation, and from the Khana group. I'll start off the panel by asking our panelists to address three very simple questions. One is their basic path as a social entrepreneur, then ask them to clarify what their companies do, and finally, how finance has been a part of their business. And I think, Raheel, if you could start, it would be fantastic.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Yeah, okay, that's fine. So the way I'm going to address this is talking about some of our work as a social enterprise. And I'm going to focus a little bit on the social part of that, and also the intrinsically creative nature of what entrepreneurship is. So I think for both of those elements to be true, there has to be a collective and democratic approach if entrepreneurship is to have a really strong ethical and social justice element to it. So this is our website, and Maslaha translates from the Arabic as for the common good, and it's a driving force for all the work that we do. And we tackle very immediate social issues affecting Muslim communities in the UK and across a number of other countries. We also try and create a greater understanding of Islam from a cultural and historical perspective. And what's been really interesting recently is the number of organizations who work with other communities who've said, could you adapt your approach for some of the social issues affecting our communities? So the idea of this kind of collective community approach really hit home when I went to the Sagrada Familia, which is a church in Barcelona. And so this was a few years ago, and I didn't realize that it's not finished. And when you walk in, there's still hammering and there are bulldozers, even though that the first stone was laid down in 1882. And there was an inscription which said that this is for the people, by the people. And when you walk in, because it's unfinished, there's a kind of vulnerability, and you feel that you become a part of its history. So there's two ways of looking at this. A, it's a building that's taking far too long to be finished, or that there's something powerful in becoming a part of its narrative as it actually unfolds in front of you. So in practice, what that means is an example of our health work here. So in the UK, Muslim communities have some of the highest health inequalities. And what we do is we combine religious, cultural, and medical information to create online resources like this website, but also physical resources like DVDs. And it's a community effort in the widest possible sense. So we'll have doctors, nurses, patients, imams, therapists, and artists coming together to create a resource. So it's very, very locally produced. And then we diffuse this material into people's everyday environments. So it's in doctors' clinics, it's also in schools, internet cafes, libraries, supermarkets, wherever the right environment is. And one of the things that we found is, because it's online, it gets picked up across the UK, but across other countries as well. And so what struck us was the idea that if you produce something locally with absolute quality and integrity, and produce it with the local community, it can translate onto a global level. Another example of the idea of creating something locally, but it spanning across a number of borders, is this educational project we produced called the Book of Travels. And this was to kind of show the mutual history that's always existed between Islam and Europe. And we used this Ottoman traveller, Evliya Çelebi, as a dramatic device. And through him, we explore the exchange in ideas and in trade. So, for instance, coffee houses were transported, the idea which was transported from Istanbul to London. Yet in both cities, they were seen as dangerous areas of debate, and those in power tried to ban them. This is how the physical exhibition looks, and it's been to a number of different countries. Oh, I think we've just missed a slide. It's been to a number of different countries, but one of the things that we want to do is work with other museums and schools to kind of convert that exhibition material into educational products that can be used in those other countries as well. And the idea of a kind of cross-border knowledge economy isn't a new one. We're working in quite a long tradition. So this map here shows an exchange of letters between 1500 and 1800, between scholars and academics. And it's over 55,000 letters between just over 6,000 people. So this idea of this exchange has always been going on, even before the internet. Oh, this is where the exhibition has been. This project here is our latest one, and for us it's about trying to embed entrepreneurship in a systemic level in a very small locality. So this is looking at the high rate of offending amongst young Muslim men in the UK. So in prisons, the the number is almost 13, 14%. In youth detention centres, it's about 20%. And what we wanted to do was to create a practical intervention that started very early on in these young men's lives. And we're working with local businesses, we're working with local schools and other very small community organisations who might not describe themselves as social entrepreneurs and probably don't know what microfinance means either, but they're kind of doing similar work. An example of there's an organisation called the Myland Community Project. And we're going to embed a knowledge base, we're going to embed systems and processes that can enable them to create networks to fundraise so that at some point, Maslaha, as an organisation, can just exit. And just to finish, I just want to go back to that idea of the collective effort and creativity. So for a city to be truly inclusive, it requires everyone to shape the public space and the public imagination. Storytellers, which is what we all are, not only excite and provoke the imagination, but they also trace the outline of future possibilities, which is why it's important that everyone is involved. Thank you.
Jacqueline, if you could.
Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me to speak. My interest in this panel is actually threefold. It's one, as an entrepreneur myself, but two, as a lawyer that represents governments and also micro enterprises and SMEs. So I'll come to this first with my experience as a lawyer and then share some of my clients' experiences with you as well within the realm of microfinance. So I started my law firm mostly because of my interest in and passion for Africa. I didn't feel that there was enough being done within the legal space to encourage entrepreneurs that wanted to do work in Africa, but also that wanted to do social work in Africa. And so when I started the firm, I specifically targeted businesses that were going to invest in micro businesses as well as SMEs. Also, understanding the fact that not all investment is good investment, I'm very selective. My clients and I, my partners and I are very selective about the types of clients that we do represent because we want to promote good investment going into Africa rather than continuing to accept all investment that comes in. And many times, not all investment that has come in has actually been of the benefit of the people. Now, one of the issues I faced was not necessarily difficulty as far as finding money. It was difficulty finding clients that knew exactly what they needed. A lot of my smaller clients thought that they were too small to get registered as businesses, and also a lot of times did not want to formalize their actual business. And so a lot of them, without formalizing it, didn't understand that they were not able to get finance because of that. In addition to just general business illiteracy issues, a lot of my micro clients also failed to find the support they needed within their communities. Yes, as far as agriculture, it's easier for women especially to find networks that way, but there were many other entrepreneurs that I worked with that weren't able to find support systems or mentorship. And so a lot of my work not only started with legal, it was also helping them network with other people and also finding them the other resources they needed. So a lot of times we work as a group. It's not only lawyers, it's accountants, it's mentors and the like, and we just work to make sure that we create a full ecosystem for the entrepreneurs that we represent. With respect to government, there's always a very interesting interplay. I advise governments on investment policy and laws. Now, a lot of times governments, at least within the African space at the moment, are focusing on foreign direct investment because those are huge amounts of money, rather than focusing on the micro as well as SME space. So a lot of times there's very poor regulation for smaller businesses. So there are governments such as the Rwandan government that I have helped advise that have created special laws that actually deal with smaller businesses and try to support and find extra ways, not through government, but through working with NGOs to help such businesses. So it's the idea of creating PPPs, but PPPs in a smaller sense, in that rather than working with large multinationals and government, in this case it's government setting up smaller entities within individual communities to work with smaller businesses. Another problem that I faced when representing government was really the disconnect between government and the people, and really understanding what the people at the bottom of the pyramid are going through in order for them to write the appropriate laws. So there are several occasions where we as legislative drafters had to go out into the field and actually interact with entrepreneurs to better understand what a lot of their challenges were and what they needed and how they felt that they would be protected by the law. As such, the approach that my law firm has taken in advising governments has really been to encourage governments to invest, take risks, and innovate, and really build up the private sector, because a lot of the problems that SMEs and micro businesses are experiencing globally within the emerging markets is that the private sector is informal, and as a result, it's really hard to scale up. Now, with respect to finance, some of the challenges that have been faced have been, once entrepreneurs do actually access finance, the interest rates are amazingly high. Now, after talking to a lot of the people here, I've come to understand that within Islamic finance, that's not really the case. And so that's definitely a model that I do plan to propose to the governments that I am advising. Another issue that has come up is once entrepreneurs do get the money, they are unable to absorb the amount of money that they do get, mostly because of management problems. And so along the way, something that I have been involved in has been helping different entrepreneurs with leadership training and also just entrepreneur management, and really questions on how do you manage a business. Another issue that has come up is that of value creation. A lot of governments, especially within East Africa, as the East African community has integrated, has been working within different communities to export local goods within the 5 countries of the region, and also work within different communities to create value addition. And that has worked really well at the micro level within the space of agriculture. And so now what we're trying to do at a policy level is try to write policies to try and encourage other industries to replicate the model of agriculture. Another trend, I guess a trend that I'm also noticing is above and beyond microfinance is as businesses grow to the next level, there is this missing middle. And now there is, KIVA obviously is kind of going into that space, but also there is a lot more money coming in from private equity and venture capital, which I think are great alternatives to the existing sources of capital. Now, some of the problems I've already mentioned, but I think that some of the solutions I see within this space are as follows. As I said, public-private partnerships are definitely a way to go, but I do think governments need to be more involved in the initial instance as far as helping set up microfinance institutions, as well as institutions that support SME investments, especially where banks and nonprofits are not within that space. Another thing is, as businesses, a lot of my clients have started at the micro level, they've gone to the SME level, but then they're not able to go past that. So then a solution that we are exploring within the East African space, and this is mostly due to the good policy environment that does allow businesses to easily go around the region, is the notion of nano multinationals. The fact that you do not need to be a billion-dollar business to go across borders, but you just need to simply have the know-how for you to go to different markets and expand your customer base. Another thing that we are promoting is the idea of innovation hubs and the ability for more micro as well as SME businesses to be incubated before they are kind of released. And one popular example of that within Kenya is iHub. And they've done amazing technologies within the mobile phone space to start businesses as well as grow them around the region as well as across Africa. And another kind of collaboration between iHub that has been quite successful globally has been that of Ushahidi, which is a mapping tool, a mobile mapping tool in times of crisis. Another thing I guess I would say is, in addition to the knowledge aspect, is really we do definitely need to kind of focus more on the creation of holistic businesses rather than the focus only on microfinance and finance broadly. Thank you.
Goris.
Thank you, Carlos. Assalamualaikum. Good afternoon. Before I begin my presentation, I would like to say thank you to World Islamic Economic Forum Foundation for holding such a great forum and also for inviting me to this honorable panel. I'd like to start my presentation to begin with several facts about Indonesia. I'd like to give perspective about the Islamic finance, what we are doing when dealing with the society, with the people, with almost 90% Muslim. Indonesia, as the largest Muslim population country in the world, has almost 240 million people. 36% of them is youth, and the poverty rate is almost 20%. So it almost 30 million people still live under poverty. It is equal to 1.5 Malaysian population. And we are a democratic country since economic crisis in 1998, which was followed by economic and political reformation in Indonesia. We are a democratic country, and this is several major problems which still we are facing so that Indonesia can become a developed country. We still have a problem on the disparity on population density, urban-rural development issue, and Gini ratio widening. As you can see on the picture, the yellow color represents the developed region, and the red color represents the less developed one. So you can see that in the Java Island, on the southern Indonesia and the western part of Indonesia, there are so many developed regions. Compare that on eastern Indonesia, there are so many least developed regions. So this is the time bomb for our country when we cannot solve this problem. And the poor, the Gini ratio, or the comparison between the poor and the rich tend to widening year by year. Despite we still benefit from the economic growth, strong economic growth, behind China, we are still enjoy the economic growth at about 6% until 6.3%. And also the middle class, which is predicted in 2020, reach 140 million. It's equal to twice UK population. But we still so many have problems. And those problems, I believe that social enterprise play a critical role to tackle those problems. We can't just sit and wait the government doing their jobs, but I think the most essential part of development is also the public participation, where we can mobilize public participation, where we can make the awareness behind people so they can stand up and make a change, positive changes. Thanks God, in Indonesia we have many problems, so we can this is opportunities to create solution where we can designing social business, and that is because social business driven by the social problem. And we can see that so many social enterprise in Indonesia, and social enterprise has proven time and time again as the major engine of economic growth. It's contribute 5% of economics of Indonesia, and it is ranging from all sectors, from farming to fishery, from tourism to creative industry, and I think so many prominent social entrepreneurs who has created amazing impact in Indonesia. And now in Indonesia, there is a growing initiative and growing interest about social movement, which led to social business creation. And I think this is the critical point, how we can use social enterprise to tackle those problems. I'd like to show our works in our foundation, how we can tackle social problem using the business models and what is the impact. Our foundation concerns on 3 areas: education, youth entrepreneurship, and microfinance. This is our program in education. We can help more than 1,000 young local students to get the education, and they can afford to go to the university with our scholarship. And this is just like life-changing experience. Some of them, it comes from the poor families. When they can graduate from university, they can have a good job, and they can change their family economics. The second area is entrepreneurship incubator. This is not really the microfinance, but we hope that if we create more entrepreneurs, young local people to become an entrepreneur, we can also deliver social impact as well as economic growth. We had helped more than, we have a tenant, young local people. We help them with several services, such as access to angel investor, mentorship and training, as well as the access to market, so they can become a good entrepreneur, ranging from the leather industry, creative economy, fishery, farming, etc. The plafond we deliver to the young local entrepreneur is ranging from $1,000 to $10,000. So we convert the funding into equity, and they also deliver a social impact because some of them also is social entrepreneur. The third area is microfinance, especially Islamic microfinance, Islamic microcredit, because we design our this is the several facts why we need microfinance. In Indonesia, still 120 million people do not have bank account. And 80% of the poor do not have access to formal financial services. And you know the current bank scam in geographic coverage do not properly fit to micro entrepreneur. So what we're doing is we design the microcredit which fit to the social, cultural, economic of the local people. We designed the Baitul Mal Watanwil, or BMT, is the Islamic microcredit run in the principle of Sharia with the non-collateral, group lending, profit share. Also, we deliver the several products based on Sharia, just like saving. Also, the Mudarabah, ayat murabaha. So we can we can help more than thousands clients, poor entrepreneur or small business and poor entrepreneurs to get funding, and they do not have go to the formal bank. The BMT just doesn't operate as a commercial bank or a formal bank, conventional bank, but it's a part of social enterprise. How we can combine social mission to transform the mustahik or the poor become muzaki or the have. We are not just giving funding, but we also give them technical assistance or capacity building, financial literacy, healthcare capacity building, etc. Because we believe that this is not just about giving access to funding, but how to change their mindset. I will keep my recommendation and the limitation of microfinance until the question and answer session. Thanks for listening.